Are we going? Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I got some great news for you. If you're waiting for the weekend, you made it. It's Friday. Of course, we broadcast live across various social media networks at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, or as close there to it as we can. And I'm going fishing as soon as this broadcast is over with, man. I'm exercising my right to life, liberty, and the pursuit, not the guarantee of happiness. But I tell you, we've got a story today that we're going to break to you that is not really about happiness. In fact, it's not about paradise. It could literally be the gates of HE double hockey stick open up. And that is because of police officers in Biden's America are under siege. And I'm going to explain that to you in just a moment. And then hopefully we have time to talk about cocky Nancy Pelosi. Pelosi has come out now after Biden's speech last night, or the night before, I guess, and basically said that she's not worried. She's not worried about retaining the House of Representatives because it's basically a lock, and we'll get into that. But before we go any further, we have to talk about our sponsor, Big Daddy Unlimited, our sponsors in general. Look above the show, no matter when or where you're watching it. You will see descriptions to not only our show, but links to our various sponsors, and from time to time, other information. Very important that you check that out. But Big Daddy Unlimited, otherwise known as BDU, is your Second Amendment headquarters, ladies and gentlemen, and they will sell you guns and ammunition at factory direct price and delivered directly to your door, as well as over 100,000 other items related to that, from swag to actually survival gear, both urban and commando, it doesn't matter, and any kind of tactical things, protective wear, you can find it at Big Daddy Unlimited. Check them out. PatriotThreads.org, apparel with a purpose, as my buddy Craig that runs that company says, the truth starts now, but they are a total fulfillment center. So if you have a charity event, basically just go on there and you'll see what I'm talking about. But if you have a charity event and you want apparel for that event and you want profits from that to go to the charity of your choice, PatriotThreads.org is the way to go. Remember our promo code, the initials to our show, JMT, John Martin Talks, JMT, 20% off. Recoil TV, man, you cannot do better than Recoil TV when it comes to demonstrating the latest guns, ammunition, high production, high quality video on everything to do with the Second Amendment. Recoil TV. Now, we are archived on there. We're not live on there, but we're archived. In other words, we have a channel within their channel, so you can find our show there on a daily basis. Of course, we have our own YouTube channel. Spell it all the way out, John Martin Talks. We need people to subscribe there, share that with others, and watch us there. We're there live every day, Monday through Friday, and then the tape is put back up about 8 hours later. So good morning, YouTubers out there, or wherever you're watching the show. All right, let's get into the meat and potatoes, nuts and bolts of this show. This is from the Washington Times. Cops under siege with rising waves of violence, man. Cops are getting at it. I mean, it's unbelievable. The disrespect is what this really is all about. The disrespect that law enforcement officers are shown now on a daily basis. I would never have believed this was going to happen. Now, cops live in a violent world. It's never been safe, ladies and gentlemen, to leave the cave. I hate to tell you that, but we've had, our streets have at various times been unsafe. Some places have been unsafe since the beginning of time, but cops have been in a violent world that we live in all the time. But I've never believed that they would be as universally disrespected as they are now. Now, I realize, let me just say this up front, that probably the majority of Americans, but certainly at least 75 million of them, and you know what I'm talking about there, respect the police officers. I know everyone that I'm affiliated with does. Everyone here at the studios does. We respect police officers a great deal. And I haven't heard anybody, and we've got a pretty diverse employment. When I say we, it's actually Big Daddy Unlimited, not we, it's them. But they've got a very diverse working environment. And I've never seen anyone complain about bad interactions with the police. but they probably respect police officers. They're here quite often. But anyway, let's get on with the show here. Delaware police officer died Wednesday after he was viciously beaten this week and became one of the latest victims in a growing wave of violent attacks on police in America. Think about this. This happened in Delaware. The gentleman was responding to some type of dispute, and he was found beaten almost to within an inch of his life, and later on it cost his life. This was in Delaware, the home of Joe Biden, not his ancestral home, I guess that's Scranton, Pennsylvania, but where he has the Biden mansion, the Biden fortress. But did you hear this? I don't believe it made national news in any way, shape, or form. But it's a real story of when police officers get killed in the line of duty, when they get beaten up, assaulted, and we're going to talk about assault. Assault's not even hardly reported these days. But did you hear about this case in Delaware? I doubt it. Not unless you listen to shows like JMT. But Delaware Attorney General Kathy Jennings hailed Corporal Hickok, is the name of the person, or Heacock, I guess, as a hero during a press conference Wednesday. This is what she said. "We are here to mourn the loss of a man who devoted his entire career to the selfless cause of serving the rest of us. We are here to acknowledge law enforcement across this state who willingly face danger each and every day so that all of the rest of us don't have to." Let that sink in for a minute. I'm going to quote what she said here again in just a second. She said that police officers willingly face danger each and every day so that all the rest of us don't have to. That's something we kind of take for granted, isn't it? And I don't necessarily mean that in a negative way. But police officers, I don't care who they are, there is nothing routine about what a police officer does. They are in danger everywhere they go. Even if they're in a dispatch, to a certain extent, they're in danger. We've had people, killings of people in police lines. And keep this in mind. I saw this the other day. I put it up yesterday, but it deserves putting up. That thin blue line, man, if it ever actually breaks, and it's getting thinner by the minute, if it actually breaks, we're going to have a special kind of hell then. I don't know about escaping from New York, but we're going to need to escape from this country. But as my good friend, I wish he was, friend of the show, we need to get him on here, Maximo Alvarez said, when it comes to America, there's no place left to go. No place left to go. And that always rings in my head. That's one of the reasons why I do what I do here. Corporal Heacock is one of two officers who died Wednesday. On Wednesday, separate incidents after an attack. A North Carolina sheriff's deputy was also killed when he was ambushed by a gunman while conducting a routine welfare check. There is nothing routine. I keep repeating this. I hear this all the time. Routine traffic stop. Routine this. We don't need armed police officers at a traffic stop. We've been hearing that crap the last week or so. I mean, there is nothing routine about what police officers do. They literally leave their house every day knowing they might not make it back that day. Really, it's just that true. I got to play this for you. I played it last week, but it needs to be played more. It's graphic, I got to tell you. It just was released. The incident actually happened a few months ago in New Mexico. But this is a New Mexico, I believe, a state trooper doing a routine, quote, routine traffic stop in broad daylight on a busy highway. And watch what happens. It is graphic, I warn you.
Sir, my name's Darren Jarrett. I'm with New Mexico State Police. The reason for the stop is your window tint's a little too dark. Dark? Yeah. Do you mind if I open the door? Or if you want to roll down the window more.
Dark?
Yeah. I noticed you got temp tags. You got a registration for the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
I'll need registration and your driver's license as well.
For what?
Come with me to my vehicle. That way I can run your name and date of birth, and then that way I can get my return, okay? Go ahead. Shut the vehicle off. If you want, it's up to you.
You can run my name if you want.
Well, I know.
Well, she's on the phone, actually. Babe, can you send me a photo of my license if you find my wallet?
That'll work. Grab the phone and come with me to my vehicle so I can get the return, and then I can make sure that everything's good.
That's right.
Okay. I got paperwork I gotta do, Hey, real quick. You have a firearm on you? Yeah. No, I see take it off you for my safety. All right, hold on. All right, let's go to my vehicle, okay? Come on. Oh, shit!
Ladies and gentlemen, there is no such thing as a routine traffic stop. Look at that officer, gunned down in cold blood, broad daylight. It's just unbelievable. You know, your thoughts and prayers go out to that family of that officer. It's just incredible. This is what police officers are facing on a daily basis. I've had police officers tell me point blank that one of the scariest things they do is a traffic stop. And you can see, because quite often police officers are alone when they stop traffic. They have no idea who's in the car, what they're doing, all these tinted windows and everything else. They don't know what they're walking up to. You know, I don't know about you, but when I get stopped by a police officer, I roll down my windows and I put my hand in the 10 o'clock and the 2 o'clock position on the wheel so they can see them at all times. Because I do it not only for safety, but I do it out of respect. Because I don't want that police officer to have to worry about what he or she is walking up to. That's just the way I was taught to act, okay? And, you know, I've had a few incidences here and there. I've talked a few about it on the show. And I'm not pretending that my experience is the same as, say, a young black male. I'm not saying that. I am saying that when you resist arrest, nothing good is going to come from that. I don't care what color you are. But I just want to make this point. I can't emphasize it enough. When it comes to policing, there is nothing that is routine, period. Their deaths come amid rising anti-police rhetoric after accusations of brutality. Law enforcement officials are under siege with violent attacks on officers' patrol vehicles and even police dogs. I'm going to play you another video. This is extremely graphic, but it's real. This happened on the streets of LA back in the fall of last year. You may recall this, but check this out. This is two police officers, two sheriff's officers, I do believe, sitting in their car, probably talking, minding their own business, maybe on break, when this happens.
Shows a man dressed in black walking to their deputy car, holding out a gun, shooting multiple times, and then running off. The deputies were parked, sitting inside their vehicle in what appeared to be a well-lit area near the Compton Metro Station, very close to their own sheriff's station.
Good. Two police officers, and it looks like almost like a child, really. It's a very short person. Walks up and just pops a few caps into them like it's nothing. Like they're just a bag of feed, like they're shooting watermelons like we used to shoot on the farm. Boom, boom, like they're playing a video game or something. Luckily, those officers survived. The one officer was shot worse than the other, and there's other video, I'm not going to show it, of the officer rendering aid to that person, and they were both within a year or two of being on the force. One of them, the woman, was a 31-year-old mother of like a 3-year-old daughter. I mean, this is what police officers are up against. I'm, by the way, not saying all this to take away anything from the George Floyd trials or any of those kind of things. I'm not saying there aren't bad cops out there. But like my old daddy used to say, there's no evidence that there's more crooked cops than there are crooked barbers. It's just that they can do a lot more harm. You know, a crooked barber give you a bad haircut, a crooked cop might kill you. So I'm not saying they don't exist, but I can tell you this. There's nothing a good cop hates worse than a crooked cop, because it makes them all bad, look pretty bad. But this is what they're up against. What I'm concerned about, ladies and gentlemen, and I've said this before, but if I say it, it bears repeating. You know, we have an all-volunteer military, right? And I'm not knocking them. I think they're the best and the brightest. But what if we become a country that is not worth fighting for? I think we're moving in that direction. But what if we become a country that's not worth fighting for? Then they might not volunteer. A flip side of the same coin. What if we become a country that is not worth protecting and serving? I mean, at some point, as a police officer, you got to do the equation, right? Is it worth it? Because they don't do it for the money. That we know for sure, man. I mean, you could probably make more money in Biden's America just collecting checks from the government. It's certainly coming. By the way, again, I want to reemphasize, if you didn't see our show from yesterday, we talked in depth about Biden's speech last night, because I've told you this, but my only political goal right now is to stop the progressive takeover of this nation, to stop it. That's what I need, and I need your help to do it. Spread the word, support our sponsors, watch the show, share it, give it as a homework assignment to your kids and grandkids or millennials. They need to see this. You know, anybody you think could benefit, share it with them. Share it with them in general. Make them watch it. I don't care. But, you know, the speech last night, or 2 nights ago, I guess by now, Biden's speech was literally a roadmap for the progressive takeover of this nation. That's why it troubled me so much. But that is my sole goal, is to stop it. And we're not going to be able to stop it without police officers, because we'll be too busy ducking and rolling and running for cover, right? Ducking bullets. Police deaths this year are set to surpass. There's some statistics in this article that are just frightening. I can't imagine if I had a spouse or a loved one that was a police officer with these statistics. Police deaths this year are set to surpass the number from last year, which was the deadliest in decades for law enforcement. Although no one tracks assaults across the country, preliminary data from local departments shows attacks on police officers also on the rise. No one tracks assaults. Wow. Think about that. Let that sink in. They don't track or keep data on assaults on police officers. I wonder why. Is it because it's routine that police officers get assaulted on a routine basis? Yeah, probably so. Is it because it doesn't fit the narrative of the cops being the bad guys? I don't know. It's just interesting to me that they don't track that. Said Mike McGrew, a 35-year veteran of the police department who co-founded a charity for officers suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. Think about that. PTSD for cops, because they're under fire, man. This is what this officer, let me get the name correct again. Officer Mike McGrew, a 35-year police veteran, he said, policing has always been a dangerous job. But with the anti-police sentiment out there, it has created an uptick in attacks on police officers. Anti-police sentiment. Now, they've always had people shouting things at them, you know, they're pigs and all that kind of stuff, and, you know, that kind of thing. That's always happened. And it's, to a certain extent, I guess, expected, although we shouldn't ever really allow it to happen. But what's really changed now, and I'm going to play this video, and I hope it makes you sick if you hadn't seen it before. It's not graphic other than who's in the video. But when you have elected leaders, people who have positions of authority, in this case, someone who's been in the House of Representatives for several decades, is a major leading figure in the Democratic Party, and says this about police officers, and have said much worse, actually. But this is Maxine Waters before the verdict came in on the Chauvin case, the police officer that put the neck on George Floyd. Listens to what she says about confrontation and violence and how we need more of it. Keep in mind that the confrontation has literally led to the death and injury of police officers, has literally led to the burning down of buildings with people inside them. But yet Maxine Waters, a leader of the Democratic Party, said this.
Reform. And so, yes, I would like to see the bill in Congress pass on police reform, but I know that the right wing, the racists, are opposed to it, and I don't know what's going to happen to it, but I know this: we've got to stay in the street, and we've got to demand justice.
As a black man, despite all of the efforts, I feel like nothing changes, and George Floyd is waking so many people up. Yet nothing has happened, despite the rhetoric. Like, what needs to happen that's different this year than all the years before?
We're looking for a guilty verdict. We're looking for a guilty verdict, and we're looking to see if all of the talk that took place and has been taking place after they saw what happened to George Floyd, if nothing does not happen, then we know that we've got to not only stay in the street, but we've got to fight for justice. But I am very hopeful, and I hope that we're going to get a verdict that will say guilty, guilty, guilty. And if we don't, we cannot go away.
And not just manslaughter, right? I mean,
Oh no, not manslaughter. No. This is guilty for murder. I don't know whether it's in the first degree, but as far as I'm concerned, it's first degree murder.
Congresswoman, what happens if we do not get what you just told? What should the people do? What should protesters on the street do?
I didn't hear you.
What happens?
what should protesters do?
Well, we got to stay on the street, and we've got to get more active. We've got to get more confrontational. We've got to make sure that they know that we mean business.
More confrontational. Did you hear that? I know it's kind of long, but I wanted you to hear all of what. That is a elected. To me, there is a big difference from just some fly-by-night person out there spouting their mouth off and someone that represents hundreds of thousands of people. In a sense, with her exalted position within the House of Representatives, literally represents the nation in some aspects. She's the chair of like the Finance Committee, which is one of the most powerful positions in Washington. And she tells you we need to be more confrontational. Keep in mind that the confrontation in that city there, literally, but across the nation, has led to people dying, to police officers being run over by cars, beat to death. Police shot in the back of the head like the officer in Kansas City was. I mean, this is what has happened. Led to the assassination of cops out in Dallas a few years ago. Remember that? So how much more confrontational do we need to get? And this is, I can't emphasize, this is an elected leader. You may say, oh, she doesn't mean anything to me, but she means something to a lot of people. A lot of people are inspired, unfortunately, by her. And when you have elected leaders bringing gasoline to the fire, what do you think the average schmo out there is going to do? I mean, it's just unbelievable. And so when I see all of this, I understand where the cops are coming from. And I got to ask the question again, why would you do it? Why would you want to be a police officer? I mean, don't misunderstand me. I'm grateful for it. I understand it to a certain extent. I've had police officers in my family. But I mean, I hate to say this, but I thought about this quite a bit. If one of my children or one of my grandkids came up, they call me Big Papa, and said, Papa, I'm thinking about being a police officer. If it had been a few years ago, I'd have been so full of pride, and I would be proud now. But I would probably call my child aside or my grandchild aside and say, have you really thought this through? And I know this is happening across the country because I've heard about it. And I'll let him remain anonymous, but a young person that I've come in contact recently told me that their father was a career police officer and that he was thinking about being a police officer himself and actually joining the military, kind of following in his father's footsteps. And his father told him basically not to do it. Not to do it in the current environment. And this is happening across the board. And when you start talking about police officers, especially in a place like, say, New York City, where I spent a great deal of time in the mid-'80s up there and got to know a lot of police officers, it is a legacy thing. You know that show Blue Bloods, where they show the legacy of all those cops, of Tom Selleck? Pretty good show if you hadn't seen it. That's real. Now, I'm not talking about the characters, but that's real. Families, generational families have been police officers in a place like New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, these major cities. And if that legacy is broken, we'll never get it back. Never get it back. Because once a legacy is broken, there is no legacy, right? And this is happening. And we better wake up, man. It may be too late already. But I respect police officers. I'm not saying everything they've done is right. I've been mistreated, in my own opinion, by a few of them myself. But I can't even imagine not having police officers around, what it would be like. Well, we know what it would be like. We've seen some examples of this. And let me tell you another thing I heard. And I'm going to let everybody remain anonymous because I heard this third hand. But I heard from a friend of mine that knows some police officers personally, not here, somewhere else. And they told him that now, because of all the crap that's happened, when they get a call in certain areas, you can say this is spread. It's black police officers too, by the way. They say that their solution is to be a little bit late getting there because they don't want to get in the middle of something because they can't win. And we're going to show a video of something similar to that in a little bit. But they can't win. So they purposely are letting it resolve. I'm not saying it's true. I'm just telling you what I'm hearing. That they let it resolve itself. So basically, I said, so they just go in there and clean up and do the paperwork. Yeah. Because they don't want to go in the middle of anything because, you know, if they act, they're going to get chastised by somebody like LeBron James. Broken legacy, man, it's a serious deal. Multiple factors are fueling the surge in attacks on police, analysts say. You think? In the wake of several high-profile deaths of unarmed black men and women at the hands of police officers are facing increased scrutiny over how they do their jobs. Well, you know what? First of all, the number of people unarmed that are killed by police officers is a small fraction. It is a major issue when it happens, no question about it, and I'm not absolving anyone of anything. George Floyd wasn't shot, by the way, just so you know. You can abuse people at every level, right? But here's the one thing that almost, and I say almost because there are exceptions, but almost every one of these high-profile, supposedly unarmed cases always involve, there's two things that involve it. In the news, it's got to be a white cop, black male usually, right? But the person is resisting arrest. Resisting arrest. If you don't get anything else out of the show, get this. I don't care what color you are. Resisting arrest will always escalate the situation, and it won't end well. For anybody, resisting arrest is the worst possible thing you could do, period. But then you got people like LeBron James, and we could play multiple videos, but I wanted to play this one. This one hadn't got played too much. But this is the one after the young man, I guess he didn't get killed, he got paralyzed, where he was shot. After he was in this, he was told multiple times, we're not going to play the video, to stop, goes into his car. LeBron talks about his family was there and everything else. Yeah, the woman that he was threatening to kill, that he had a restraining order against, that he'd already beat to an inch of her life, yeah, she was there. And this guy had weapons charges against it. Anyway, they shot this guy. Not saying it was totally justified, but listen to what LeBron is saying and the message he's putting out there. Check it out.
Frankly, it's just in our community. And us, I know people get tired of hearing me say it, but we are scared as black people in America. Black men, black women, black kids, we are terrified.
And that could be true. But are you helping the situation, LeBron? Are you pouring gas on the fire? Like Maxine Waters? Because where is the LeBron James public service announcement saying something like, hey kids, I know you're scared out there, but don't resist arrest. Don't give them a reason. He doesn't have to be like all kowtowing to the police, but he could just state, don't resist arrest. You know, maybe he could put a foundation, said, I'll hire a lawyer or something to help you if you qualify, but don't resist arrest. Where's the LeBron James on that? No, he's basically saying, you know, black people are hunted. That people, but of course he defends the Chinese who are literally putting people in concentration camps and systematically murdering them. So is the president, by the way. But so I guess we shouldn't expect anything like that much out of them. The incidents have resulted in violent protests of police, slash departments' budgets. There's your solution. Cut the money. And social media messages from politicians and celebrities who slammed law enforcement, like LeBron did, while issuing tepid condemnations of attacks on officers. Have there been any condemnations of attacks on officers? If so, I haven't seen it. Maybe you could send me a link to a video or something, because I haven't seen it where major political figures on the left, maybe some on the right, but on the left, and major Hollywood people have actually come out and defended the police. I haven't seen it. Of course, they'll be the first ones they call and to keep in mind, Kamala Harris, the co-president, by their own admission, the Biden-Harris ticket. I mean, she actually bailed out people in Minneapolis and around the country who had attacked police officers. She bailed them out. So what does that send? What kind of signal does that send a police officer? And Biden's campaign at the time donated tens of thousands of dollars to do the same thing. People he's probably got working for him in the White House. Yet, they respect police officers. Right. You put your money where your heart is, really, sometime, right? At the same time, liberal prosecutors, listen to this. This has happened especially in places like L.A., St. Louis, by the way. At the same time, liberal prosecutors have announced that they will no longer pursue cases of resisting arrest, eliminating consequences for assaulting police. Oh my God! Are you serious? So you're not going to prosecute people for resisting arrest. That means it's open season on police officers, right? Why? I keep coming back, and I'm not trying to dissuade people from becoming a cop. Matter of fact, if you want to be a police officer, man, I tip my hat. You couldn't have somebody support you more than I do. God, we need you. And if they're bad ones, yeah, we need to weed them out. But the idea that you won't be arrested for assaulting, which is resisting arrest is a type of assault, a police officer, can you really believe that's happening? I mean, yes, we can believe it's happening in Biden's America, sure. But if I'd have told you that 10 years ago, you'd have been, man, maybe you'd have said, yeah, that's where we're headed. It's just crazy. What good can come out of that? It's like saying that, hey, we're not going to enforce school zone speeding anymore. What do you think would happen? How many kids would probably get run over? I mean, because people try to pass school buses all the time where I live. And I can't imagine if they didn't think. Let's put it this way. I use this analogy. I don't know about your neighborhood, but in the area I live with all these dadgum college kids and everything, the way they drive is just crazy. Maybe I'm just getting too old, but they drive like they're the most important thing in the world is whatever they're doing, and you're just in their damn way. I mean, that's really how it is. I can't even fathom how they'd be driving if there was no threat of police officers whatsoever stopping you. I mean, it's just crazy. But no, it's hard for me to swallow that, Billy Bob. You haven't met my psychic sidekick. He's Billy Bob Bass. He's got a Twitter handle. It's at Billy Bob Bass 1, and mine is at John Martin Talks. We're determined to stay in the public square, and we need your help to do that. Spread the word far and wide, ladies and gentlemen. But it just troubles me. It troubles me to know that police officers that people aren't going to be charged for resisting arrest. What good can come from that? Through the first 4 months of the year, we're going to get into a few statistics. I mean, look, I got a little bit of time. We probably end up with just this story because it's really important. The Nancy Pelosi thinking that she's going to win re-election. And she might. She might, by the way, with the way things are going. Nothing would surprise me. Through the first 4 months of the year, 111 officers, first 4 months, 111 officers lost their lives. Wow. Sad. Lost their lives in the line of duty. According to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund, that is an 11% increase from 98 during the same period last year. So the trend is going the wrong way. A total of 360 officers died in the line of duty last year, according to the fund, the deadliest year for law enforcement since 1974. So those mostly peaceful protests that we were led to believe, more officers were killed last year. I don't think that's a coincidence. I really don't. Lawlessness leads to attacks on police officers. And what's going to happen without the law? Of the officers' deaths this year, 3 were attributed to direct assault. Well, I guess they did monitor that. 17 to gunfire, 1 to stabbing, and 8 to vehicular assault, according to the fund. You know, so it sounds to me like, well, let's just play this video and we'll come back and talk about it. What do we want? Dead cops. When do we want them? Now. That was Black Lives Matter just last year marching through the streets of New York City. What do we want? Dead cops. When do we want them now? It sounds like they're getting their wish, don't it? It's a sick dadgum wish, man. But they're getting their wish. What are we going to do about it? Well, one thing we need to do is respect police officers. We need to shore them up. We need to let them know we have their backs. Because you don't want to even think about a world, let alone a country, certainly your neighborhood, without police officers. It's just ludicrous to me. Last year, 1 officer was killed from an assault, 45 by gunfire, and 13 from vehicular assault, the fund said. So the numbers are getting worse. Said Maria Haberfield, a former police officer, thank you for your service, ma'am, and now a professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. Now, this is a police officer saying this. I wouldn't even consider joining the police today. Who wants to be vilified on a daily basis? And it's happening on a daily basis with a very broad brush. She said, the politicians are fueling this, Miss Haberfield said. Wow. She's right about that. And I want to play this video for you. It's graphic. You might have seen it. This is in Columbus, Ohio. I think it was literally the afternoon of the Chauvin, within an hour or two of that verdict. They weren't connected, I don't think. And there was police officers were responding to a 911 call that people were fighting in the streets, women, girls were, and with knives. Watch, this is a video cam of police officer. It goes pretty fast, but this police officer literally in a split second comes on the scene, and it turns out that there's like a 16-year-old girl, the one with the knife, is about to plunge that knife into the chest of a 13-year-old, and the officer, who happens to be white, does this. Check it out.
The information was that a caller said females were there trying to stab them and put their hands on them. Deadly force can be used to protect yourself or the protection of a third.
That's good enough. I mean, what was the headline out of that? White cop kills teenage girl with a knife or something like that. So it makes it sound, I mean, that was basically the headline, CNN, everywhere else. White cop kills teenage black girl or of color, you know, unarmed, because she was only having a knife, right? They even went so far on places like MSNBC to make it sound like, oh, it's just routine that these black girls, it's just, you know, girls having fun. The cop didn't need to do that. Well, let me just ask, why couldn't the headline have read, white cop saves black teenager? Because that's what happened, right? Yes, he took the life of that woman, but she was assailing that. Is there any doubt, if you slow that video down, you will see, in my opinion, that young girl leaning up on that car would be dead today or pretty close to it. I mean, she'd have got stabbed at least one time right in the chest hard. That was a big old gal with that knife. I don't know what the police officer is supposed to do. And if that police officer, of course, LeBron James, LeBron tweeted out, and of course he was shamed into taking it down. I didn't know he had any of that, shame that is. But he put up a picture of the police officer, the actual picture of the white police officer, with a little like hourglass symbol next to him, and said, "You're next. You're next." And this is a police officer doing their job, saving a young black girl from pretty much certain death. And who knows? You think social workers could have stopped that with a clipboard? You really think that? And people say, oh, well, they could have tased her. Even LeBron, with that case we were talking about earlier, said there was a couple of times when the police officer could have tackled that dude. Yeah, that surely wouldn't have de-escalated the situation. When a police officer points a gun at you and says, drop it, guess what you should do? Not drop it low and twerk. That's for damn sure. You should probably drop it. I mean, I just don't know what they're supposed to do. I can just say this, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll move on. We got a few minutes left. If a police officer can't do what that police officer did in Columbus, Ohio, if that is no longer allowed, if that's illegal somehow, if he's next, as LeBron said, to be prosecuted and convicted, then to me it's probably over. Because why would anyone put themselves in that situation ever? And I reemphasize, there is nothing routine about what a police officer does, period. And we live in a violent dadgum world. And to what extent you live in a world that is not violent, thank your local police officer or your local soldier that fought for your right to be here, man. But it's over. It scares me, man. We got just about about 8 minutes left. We're going to go on to this Pelosi story because I think it's kind of interesting. This is from Breitbart. Pelosi, I feel very confident that the Democrats will hold the majority after the next election. This is Queen Pelosi. Thursday on CBS's This Morning, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, keep in mind this was like the morning after the Biden speech. It's a whole different term to the morning after, right? Thursday on CBS This Morning, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said she was confident in Democrats' election prospects in 2022. Well, no joke. You know one reason why he's confident? Because they're buying votes on a daily basis. I mean, the Democratic Party is literally buying votes. This right here is a picture. I said on my show yesterday, I warned people, this is one of the scariest pictures you'll ever see, and I gave them 3-second countdown. I probably should have done it again. That's Biden flanked by Kamala Harris and Nancy Pelosi. These are the people that are leading our country right now. I mean, I don't know about you, but that's scary, man. It really scares me. But the Democrats are buying votes. They're literally mortgaging our future on the current power struggle. And they're literally turning us, if you look at Biden's speech and you listen to what the Democrats are saying in general, they are trying to create a situation where you are dependent on the government from the womb, from the cradle to the grave. Period. They want you to be totally dependent on the government. That's what their mission is. And my mission is to stop that progressive takeover. Pelosi touted the census results, which she hinted could be favorable for her party's cause. It's interesting what she points here, because we did a show a couple days ago about Cuomo talking about suing in New York because they lost a House seat. She kind of refers to that here because their population is not keeping up with the growth of red states, to be honest with you. Elections, this is what she said, elections are always a contest and you see what happens in them. But I feel very confident that the Democrats will hold the majority after the next election. I think that for all the huffing and puffing the Republicans are doing, these numbers, talking about the census numbers, were not good for them as they had hoped. Now listen to what she says as to why. Because she's not denying that places like Florida and Texas are gaining seats. But the reason why, I think you need to pay attention to. She said they wanted 3 in Texas, 2 in Florida. I know Florida is getting maybe 1, and the rest. But much of the growth in many of these places that picked up more numbers, more members in Congress, the growth was from Hispanics, African Americans, and the rest. So we'll see where that vote goes. You know what she's really saying right there? That if they're Hispanics, if they're African Americans, then they're just going to vote Democrat. They're going to be sheeple. Bah! Is that true? I mean, if you're a black person and you're fleeing from New York City, are you fleeing to come down here and vote for the same nonsense that made you run from to Texas or Florida in the first place? If you're fleeing California and you're Hispanic, are you going to Texas so that you can bring California with you? If so, please stay where you are. Go back. I mean, but man, it is a sheep meme if ever. We are now becoming, if what Nancy Pelosi, she views you, check this out. I'm telling you this is true. Nancy Pelosi, by her statement right there, views you, Hispanic Americans, Black Americans, women. She views you, LGBTQ, you name it. She views you as subjects of the realm. You're no longer a citizen of the republic. You're a subject of the realm, and you will do as you're dadgum trained to do, and that is to vote straight Democrat all the time. So even if you're moving from New York City, you're going to carry your lousy politics with you and vote for Nancy Pelosi and her bunch again. God, if true, like the Democrats say, if true, we through. Pelosi added, but this is right now, this is key to it too. Listen to this and I'll translate it for you. I can speak Pelosi. She said, but this is right now, the best politics of all is to get the job done for American people. Spend that money, get them addicted. The blueprint that has been put forth by the president last night, progressive takeover America, meet the needs of American people. That's what we're talking about the Democrats about. We're not worrying about who's going to be speaker in 2 years from now. The translation of that, ladies and gentlemen, is get it done now. Because she knows that they could be out on their rear ends in 2 years, so they better push for everything they possibly can now. See, the Democrats aren't Republicans when it comes to politics, and I'm not even talking about their philosophy as far as their policies. I'm talking about how they act. Nancy Pelosi act like she had the majority and owned the Supreme Court even when she only had 1/3 of 1/3 of the government. Democrats do it. When's the last time Republicans really went in there and exercised their power? I know they'll say all this under Donald Trump, but he had to fight, man. Every day he had to fight Republicans every single dadgum day. So the Republicans, as I tell you, they've always been great at being the minority party. See, the Democrats are great at it too, because even though they're the minority, sometimes they act like the majority all the time. So they're great at it in a different way. Republicans are great at it because they're well suited to be a minority party. Because people like, Turtlehead Mitch McConnell, they can sit back and they can talk the talk, they can whine and complain. We ain't nothing we can do about it. Raise a bunch of money and don't do a dadgum thing. The Republican Party, the upper echelon, is well suited to be the minority party. It's going to be up to us citizens. Now, we may have to hold our nose. People ask me all the time, what can we do? Sometimes we may have to hold our nose and just get in. I wish we could primary all the Republicans for the most part. Not all of them, but you know what I'm saying. Flush them all out like I keep showing that cat flushing the toilet. Flush them all out. The Democrats just need to go. We need to get rid of as many of them as possible. And I'm not talking about Democratic voters. I'm talking about the people that are leading their party. The Pelosis, the Schumers, the Bidens, the Obamas. We need to get rid of them. I'm talking about voting them out, by the way, algorithm. And Republicans, we need to flush the system and get rid of them. But it's up to us, the American people. If you're waiting for the second coming of Donald Trump, I'll close the show with this. I hope it comes. I'm ready for it. I'm ready for Ron DeSantis. I'm ready for whatever. But if you're waiting on our elected officials to flush the toilet, they ain't going to flush it because they're too busy counting the paper. And I ain't talking about toilet paper. Well, I hope you have yourself a great weekend. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Look at our sponsors above the show. Check them out. Big Daddy Unlimited, all that. You need to check it out for you and for me. Spread the show far and wide. Give it as a homework assignment to people you love. But above all else, ladies and gentlemen, I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. Man, do I have to say it? We need to pray for this nation. God, she needs it and deserves it, and we need to do it. But above all else, like I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.